y a Patricia Siller. ¿Siller? Perdón. ¿Ya? ¿Siller?
Sí.
Ah, Siller.
Todo el mundo, pero Siller.
A Patricia Siller, ya son curadoras independientes y van a como compartirnos hoy como sobre las prácticas colaborativas que atraviesan inquietudes en común, pero que trabajan desde puntos muy diferentes. Entonces, les doy la bienvenida y muchas gracias. Gracias.
Hola, hola. Hola. ¿Nos escuchan?
Sí.
Okay. Mi nombre es Sara. Estoy feliz de estar aquí y gracias por venir. Soy una curadora independiente, autora, profesora de asignatura y una trabajadora cultural en el ambiente del arte contemporáneo y digital. Estoy basada en Montreal, Canadá, un territorio indígena no cedido que pertenece a la nación Kayenyaga o Moa. Antes que nada, me gustaría agradecer Carla y al equipo de SOMA por invitarme esta noche y a Patti por su disposición a participar en esta conversación. Estoy aquí parte de una residencia de networking curatorial organizada por Molior. Es una organización en Montreal especializada en la producción de exposiciones y proyectos artísticos que utilizan las tecnologías. También tienen este programa de residencias en colaboración con ACT, el programa de arte, ciencia y tecnología de la UNAM, y SOMA, con el apoyo del gobiernos de Quebec y Canadá. Soy la cuarta curatoria que viene en México en el programa desde 2023. Como mi lengua materna es el francés, voy a pasar al inglés. And now la estructura de la presentación. So we'll start with a description of some of our projects. Then we'll have a discussion about different questions that we share, and we will open the discussion to you. But I mean, feel free to jump in at any moment if you have questions. We're very relaxed and very open to have your questions.
Gracias. Bueno, primero que todo, muchas gracias al equipo de SOMA por invitarnos. Gracias a Sara por invitarme también. Y pues nada, yo soy Patricia Siller, soy curadora independiente y también soy productora y gestora. Yo soy originalmente de Saltillo, Coahuila. Llevo en la Ciudad de México aproximadamente 13 años. Y bueno, por más de 10 años he trabajado como Sara con prácticas digitales, electrónicas y todo lo que tenga que ver con lo que le llamamos arte medial, o bueno, hablaremos de cómo se le llama más adelante. Pero bueno, yo a Sara la conocí porque ambas también somos gestoras y productoras, como les comenté, y yo fui a Montreal en el 2024, en agosto, para la edición 25 del Festival de MUTEC. Yo trabajé para MUTEC en el 2024 también, y les hice como la curaduría y la producción de su programa de pláticas, que es como pues, un simposio que se llama Digilab, que como que cada año cambia un poco de formato, pero en el 2024 yo lo curé, lo produje y gracias a eso es que fui a Montreal, pues para ver cómo lo hacían allá y sí, un poco networking y tal. Y después Sara vino para la edición 20 de Mutec acá, y pues nada, así es como nos volvimos a encontrar. Y en ese entonces pues las dos sabíamos que éramos curadoras, pero realmente no pudimos como platicar muy a fondo acerca de nuestra práctica, pero siempre supimos que había como un interés ahí en común. Y sí, pues bueno, no pudimos platicar en esas ocasiones porque pues, las dos productoras y haciendo cosas y la locura de los festivales y tal. Pero pues nada, entonces Sara me buscó y empezamos como a cuestionarnos acerca del rol de la curaduría y del rol de la curaduría en nuestras prácticas específicamente. Y esta soy yo. Ya, bueno, me gustaría contarles acerca de varios proyectos que he hecho, y para esto me gustaría también como contarles un poquito acerca de mi background, que es otra cosa que Sara y yo compartimos. Yo me gradué de la carrera de artes visuales y mediáticas. O sea, en realidad yo estudié como para ser artista, cosa que nunca ejercí. me causaba demasiado estrés, como esta cosa de crear. Entonces, pues, de ahí también como que parte mucho mi cuestionamiento de qué es una curadora, qué es un artista. Y nada, como los últimos semestres de mi carrera, los dediqué como a especializarme en curaduría. Pero sí, en realidad como yo debía haber sido artista, pero nunca lo hice. Y nada, me gusta mencionar esto porque creo que da mucho contexto como acerca de cómo trabajo y por qué trabajo como trabajo. Después de eso, trabajé en espacios comerciales, o sea, en galerías, y después trabajé en una feria de arte muchos años. Entonces, bueno, el cúmulo de estas experiencias es lo que ha ido como formando mis intereses curatoriales. Y siempre, como les digo, siempre he estado como muy interesada en como estos límites entre qué es un curador, qué es un artista, y incluso si es necesario como el rol de un curador. Después de muchos años de estar trabajando como en proyectos comerciales, comencé una especie de galería, proyecto curatorial, expositivo. En el 2016 lo cofundé con una persona que se llama Luis Nava, que también es artista curador, y se llamó Janet 40. Y entonces con este proyecto teníamos como dos variables. Uno de ellos era hacer como objetos sacados como de la pantalla. Entonces en este proyecto lo que hacíamos era trabajar con artistas que su obra era digital de una u otra forma. O sea, por ejemplo, Daniel es un artista que trabaja mucho con sonido. Entonces, pues, sí, como que en ese entonces su obra tenía un componente digital muy fuerte. Y como que viniendo de esta parte de la onda comercial, de trabajar en galerías, etcétera, como que dijimos, ¿cómo se puede comercializar el arte inmaterial como de este tipo, ¿no? También como que, no sé, veíamos a nuestros amigos sufriendo por lana, cosa que todavía sigue pasando, pero y como no siendo representados como por las galerías comerciales, y sí, entonces comenzamos a hacer, les digo, por un lado estos como drops de objetos en edición, que ahorita les cuento de este, y por otro lado exposiciones como curadas. Entonces, bueno, voy a cambiar a inglés. Sorry. So for this project, what we did is we worked with the artist Daniel Pérez Ríos. He's from Monterrey, and at the beginning of Janet 40, we were really interested in designing objects. So it was more of like a utilitarian kind of piece. So Daniel did a cover of Lana Del Rey's Summertime Sadness song. And yeah, it was really like long and kind of ambient. And so we started thinking about the concept of the song and how to translate it into an object, but without losing the actual piece. So what we did is we created this beach towel, alluding to, you know, the summertime thing. And then when you got it wet, a password would appear on that blue stripe, and then you would put that password into our website and download the song piece. So yeah, we were thinking about how information is shared on the internet, about authorship, about piracy, and also like whoever got the piece, like of course it was for sale. So whoever got the piece could also like share the password with whoever they wanted. Like it was just like when you used to pirate a song and then you could burn it into a CD, or those kind of things that are started kind of phasing out with the advent of streaming services. So yeah, we were thinking about all these things, but there's also like a component of humor in what we both do, I think. So yeah, this was one of the projects that I think was like best realized during my time with Janet 40. And then the next project that I wanted to show you, and we also did an event. So when we did this object, there was always a question of how do we sort of present them to the public, because you make a piece, but again, we're not artists, so we don't know, like, but we're also curators, so we were like, okay, but are you gonna like make a show with only one piece? Like, and we thought about it at first as an online shop, but that didn't work either because the objects were so strange and kind of unique that people wanted to touch them and play with them. So what we ended up doing is having this sort of party in which Daniel, the artist, played the song, which was also really long and boring, so it was kind of funny that it was a party with that song, and he played it like, I think like 10 times during the night. So it was kind of a performance, but a concert, but also a party. And we presented the towels just kind of laying around all the space. Another thing that I forgot to add is that we didn't have a physical space because at the beginning we thought about doing everything online, and especially in 2016, like it kind of just didn't work. Like people weren't really seeing our website. We also like, yeah, I mean, it was hard, and so we decided to start doing physical events, and that's how people started to know us a little bit more. So if you notice, like I said, we started in 2016, but this project was in 2017. So it was like a year of figuring out how to get our pieces out. Another thing that I told Sarah yesterday is that I think we had a lot of fun with like how we presented Janet 40. Like most people, even to this day, like they don't know if Janet 40 was a gallery or an artist or a, you know, even like a music project, like some people are, or if we did parties, and I think we're really like that and kind of embrace that weirdness. So that's the first project that I wanted to show you. And then this other exhibition that we did was, excuse me, the beer, was in 2018, and yeah, I mean, the title is just emojis, but the working title was A Secret Garden. So what we did is we got invited to curate a show in this gallery that doesn't exist anymore. It was called Proceso, and they focused on photography or like photographic image in that time. So we were like, okay, how can we like play with this idea of the image and photography if we really didn't do that? So what we decided to do is it was also a very, very tiny space, and we were set on doing a group show. So we invited 10 artists, and what we did is we asked for a digital piece from them, and with that as a base, we created these things that are called, I mean, there's like a correct name for them, but they're also called magic eyes. So they're the ones that when you kind of squint your eyes and look away, you kind of discover a shape or something hidden. So when you discovered what was inside these images, it was a 3-letter code, and then those 3 letters, you could enter them at the end of the gallery's URL, and you could see the actual piece that was behind it. So when you got to the gallery, it looked kind of something like this. It was like people didn't make sense of what was happening because it was like a storefront really. Like that was not the show, and that was the whole point. This was also for sale, and we sold a couple of pieces, no more, like 5 I think. So that was interesting because for us it was just a vessel. So we were working with this idea of the object as a vessel, not as the piece itself, but it was what we sold. So that was always kind of fun, and I don't know, like it was also interesting to see people relate to the object the way we did, because we also always thought that we were like object fetishists, like, and we called this sort of objects as internet souvenirs. So yeah, you could like take a little something physical with you, but it wasn't like the important part. It wasn't like the soul of the thing. And yeah, so that's why we named it like Secret Garden, because it was also interesting that it was something that most people, or not most, I'm gonna say like half, couldn't see. Like some people can't cross their eyes or like do the eye thing enough to like discover what's hidden. So, and we actually had one person who was like really mad. He was like, just tell me like the code, and like I want to look at the show. And I was like, no, like that's the whole thing, like it's secret until you see it. So again, this kind of thing with the humor, just being kind of cheeky, you know, with with the things that we showed. But yeah, I think like I'm gonna like make a cut here to talk about how, like for me, these 2 projects kind of represent a lot what we were talking about with the limits between the curatorial and the artistic, because you know they are shown in a way that the artist wouldn't have shown if it wasn't for the middleman, which in this case was me and Luis. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of put a pin on for when we're discussing later. So like I said, these were projects that I did with Janet 40, and then we ended that project in 2023-ish. There's no like exact date when we were like, okay, this is, so yeah, kind of 2023, around there. And I was also telling you the other day that I think that the project at that time had kind of run its course. Like some of the artists that we collaborated with continuously got like bigger, I mean like actual gallery deals where they were being shown in museums, or like I feel like we kind of acted as a platform for some artists, which was completely what we wanted, and we also got to sell some art for them. So that was at a time where it was in Mexico specifically, in Mexico City, it wasn't happening. Like people weren't really, I don't know, like, yeah, relating to media art in that way. So yeah, so we finished that project. We did, I don't know, I think 30 exhibitions, something like that. We did a bunch of stuff. We also went to fairs. We showed Mexican artists abroad. It was like a really prolific time, but we did feel like it needed to kind of be done. Like we did what we were able to. We kind of came to a crossroads where it was like, okay, so are you gonna get a space and like actually represent artists, or like what's your role here? And we decided to just end it. So that happened, and then I started curating independently, so only by myself, which is something that is also, I think that we should also touch on, because I don't really like working by myself. I consider what I do right now as a collaboration with artists. I don't really do the whole, I want this piece, and then I just hang it on a wall, and this is what's gonna happen, and this is my concept, and that's it. So having said that, my next project that I want to show is this solo show that I curated for artist Santiago Muedano. It was at this independent gallery called Nixon, which is in the Cuauhtémoc area. And so Santiago and I are really close friends, and he had been battling for a while with the idea of just like not making visual art anymore. He's also a musician. And I think this is an important pivot for me, because I also started seeing the digital more as a like digital media, digital art and media art as a more of a conceptual kind of interest, instead of just like the way artists make art. So Santiago, for this show, uses a lot of social media references, like in these pieces. Like actually this whole wall is filled with like images he stole from Instagram, and like you can even see like some stories that people shared, and like, yeah, it's all kind of stolen material. So, and it's also like very much like emo coded, which is also like a thing I'm interested in, but that's another that's another thing. But yeah, I mean, emo is like this whole thing that kind of started on MySpace, and it was shared through, you know, the early social media kind of thing. So yeah, I started seeing that interest more in a abstract way. And so anyways, he, like I said, he's a musician, and he was thinking about sort of just dropping the whole visual art thing. So we started talking, and we both got invited to do this thing by Hernan, the director of Nixon. And I was like, I basically became his therapist for a second. And I was like, you know, like, I don't know why you're kind of separating your practices. We should like bring them together and start thinking about it in a more cohesive way. So we ended up doing this show that kind of functioned as the booklet that comes in a CD. So he did a drawing for each of the songs that were in an album that he was working on. So it functioned as the exhibition, it functioned as the album launch, and I also organized a gig in which I invited, Santiago and I both invited artists and cultural workers who also had a musical practice. So again, like the party that I showed you at the beginning, it kind of functions as another level of the show. So I don't like just like putting stuff on the wall and calling it a day. Like I think it has a lot of components what I do and a lot of layers. And one of them tends to always be social. So yeah, those are the projects that I wanted to show. I think it's your turn to show us some, maybe? Yeah.
All right, so just like Patty said, I also studied in creation to be an artist in intermedia at Concordia, so this is a program in arts and technology. So I did my BFA there, and then I took a 3 years break during which I worked for the Digital Art Festival in Montreal. And then when I went back, I decided to do an MA in art history, and back then the thinking was like, oh, I'm so like coordinating stuff, I need just time to sit down and think in depth about what I'm interested in, and to write about it. So like to me, art history provided me with that. However, I felt that I really missed the vibe of like the collective, like in the studio, and we're all working together and like giving feedback with each other, and I was not like at all happening in my art history program. So following my graduation, I slowly drifted toward curatorial activities, which like this project I did when I was still a student, but like I more actively started after my MA. And yeah, at first, so this is the first project I made, and I will tell you more about in a second, but I started working with friends mostly and as a duo, and it just happened this way. Like we had an opportunity, we saw a call, we just decided like, hey, let's do it together, it's gonna be more fun. And slowly it became like a way to work. It became very like integrated in my methodology, and I think like for many reasons, but I just like to bounce ideas, I just like to have my ideas challenged, and working in collaboration really like made that happen. And on a very practical level, sometimes like it's probably the same everywhere, but in Canada in general, in Montreal, you're not paid like tons to do curatorial gigs, and it's fun if you have fun during the process and you work with people you like, so you can vent together, or just like having like, we're gonna have a work sessions, and then it's gonna end up with a beer, and it's gonna be like an opportunity to see my friends at the same time. So this is how I started curation, and so this is not like my favorite projects in terms of results, but what's interesting is that I was still studying in my BFA, so I was an artist at that time, and one of my friends said, oh, let's curate a show, and I was like, sure. So this is the first show that we've curated together, and the idea was to explore the imaginary of the North. So like seeing broadly, what is the North? Is it like the northern suburb of Montreal? Is it like the polar bears? Like what is it? So we had a call for projects, and we asked artists to submit ideas, like not finished projects, just vague ideas. And then once we selected people, we knew at the same time that there was a new lab at UQAM, the University in Montreal, that was like about the imaginaries of the North. So it was like a chair that was established with researchers thinking about that. So we invited them to give a conference, and the artists had to attend, and it was also open to the broader audience. And so like all the artists were there asking questions, taking notes, and like thinking about how their projects, like their idea for our projects would fit in there. And a few weeks later, they just like showed their project. So there was a bit like a follow-up by us. Insects are falling from the sky.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah. So yeah, like it was a performance event. At that time, I was more working into like it was like a multi-medium event. It was only during one night, but we had performances. We had like pictures hanging on the wall. We had like tags and like presentations with, and we had like a polar bear doing karaoke. So like the idea with this process was to get a more coherent exhibition and to get the artists engaged in the research like earlier in the process, not just like, hey, bring your projects and this is it, but like think together, like we know that we're gonna like at the same time where there's a round table, we're all gonna be here and think about our thing. It was very naive and very like, we haven't thought about it for a while, but I think it's interesting given my practice today, like that happened. And was the result like a more current exhibition? I doubt it. It was really like, you can see the polar bear there. One of the guy had like, it was like breaking wood. There was a girl lying in ice until she was shaking too much. And we had like this guy's as a mayor talking about like the corruption in the northern suburbs. So it was like not coherent, but the process was fun. And again, it was like a first attempt at curating. And no one got paid, but that was fun. So this, I'm gonna show a video while I'm speaking, and I really have to make sure there's no sound because the soundtrack is awful. Can we get this full screen? Yeah. So I'm first going to tell you about Les Ateliers Belleville. So in Montreal, and maybe like it's probably the same here, I think it's worldwide phenomenon, but there's a gentrification going on, and like artist studios, they have their space in affordable places, and then their building gets purchased, and then their rent goes up, and they can't afford to live there anymore. So this is what happened with Belleville, and after a few times, like Belleville is a community of like, it's a not-for-profit with a board, so it's not like individuals, it's really like an organization. And after that, they just said, we're tired of like always moving, we just want to make art. So they really pushed like the city, they created like an hashtag that was like Nos Ateliers, because there was a crisis. What is it, like nos talleres. Gracias. So yeah, there was like a mobilization and like really like petitions going on and different get out of there. Yeah. So different things going on, like to keep the artists like around the center, not like downtown, but at least like not too far away, and also knowing that there were like instruments for gentrification, like not like, of course not they wanted to be that, but it always happened, like they're in a neighborhood, everything gets nice around it, and then they get kicked out. So Belleville managed to get a big loan to purchase a building, to renovate it, and now they offer, like they have collective workshops. So there's a ceramic shop, a wood shop, a metal shop, and there are 70 members who are working there, and all of them have like very specific skills, like, and they're very, very like manual people. There's a fab lab, so they're like genius at 3D printing stuff. And so Belleville decided at some point to make a mini golf. And so they produced, like they asked 18 artists to design holes, which they did, and they delivered either a drawing, a maquette, a 3D plan of the holes that they were envisioning, and all the people with different skills at Belleville made the holes happen. So it was very like funny to see, like some people were hired, some artists were hired to make fries, like they have a mold and they make just little like rubber fries, or like very silly stuff like that, and it was their job for like the week. So about 60 artists collaborated in that, and I was one of the programmers. So we had a programming team, we were 4. I had the artists who had the original ideas, the directors at Belleville, and myself, and we just like worked together. But what I like about this project is like the authorship really gets dissolved in a way. Like everyone felt really attached to this project, and like people were like, oh, I made this part, and it was really like the idea of collaboration is like inherent to that project, and it was very fun. And also like the fun aspect that you've mentioned, I think it like the conditions in the art world are not perfect, precarity is there, and sometimes it's just fun to like do silly things like that. And also the holes had a concept, like the way they were like put in the space. You know, the big like pink line, it was kind of a funnel in which like the ball was taking forever to go down. And then the one after, the children were going mad because like you would put a little golf ball and then wait for it was so slow, and at every moment it could have stalled, but it was always going on. And like kids were so impassioned, so it was very like triggering for them and really fun to see like the audience interacting with it. And also, so we had a first presentation last summer, but it's gonna be shown again and again, and every time it's gonna be presented again, artists will get like some fee for that. Like not a huge fee because they're like many people, but it's still like a passive income for them. So it's a project that makes a lot of sense. And last project I wanted to talk about, it's in the making, and I'm kind of trying out the title right now. I'm not sure. I'm always like, is it construction, conduction, which one comes first? So it's really in development, but it's gonna open in September. It's a show with sound art installation made by 6 artists. And what is interesting about this project, to my own opinion, is that the artists are 6 women, and they're working in different mediums. So they have like a live performance practice, they have like sound installation practice, and they also give workshops, all of them. And many know each other, but some are in slightly different communities. So like, we've seen this project as a full meal. Like, each artist gets to have their installation, do a performance, and have the workshop. So the idea is to work with an idea that you decline in different medium and different formats, like different access for the audience, but also different ways to explore in depth a concept. And for this project, I'm co-curating it with a musician who's not a curator. It's a fun adventure, but it's very relevant to that specific context, I think. And all the artists, we're producing the work, so they will have to create or adapt new work, and they will have to work together because it's one exhibition room, and there will be 6 artists presenting some art. So it's really like the scenography will be really like thought of, and they will have like their first meeting next month to just like tell what their ideas are, how they're gonna make sure that we don't hear their work all of the time. And the dome that you see on the head of the person there, so it's a work that will be the central piece, like not this one, but a version of it, and it feeds from the bleed being like the sound bleeds around, so it's really like fed from noises in the room. So she needs like contamination, otherwise it doesn't work. So yeah, this is my 3rd project. Oh yeah, and about this one, like the idea is really to, when you engage in a process that it's like more complicated than just, oh, send your work, we'll put it here, like you mentioned. It's really relationships, and I think we have this in common, that we're creating relationships, we're really like following the artists and discussing with them, and it's like, how can I make my life more complicated? Like, I'm gonna have to write to the artists every week to see like what they do and so on, but it's the way I like to work, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh yeah, one last thing, and then I pass the mic to Patty. So yeah, I'm here in a residency, if you manage to understand my Spanish at first. And I will be here until March 21st, and I'm like, this is a networking residency, so I'm gonna visit places, meet artists. I'm gonna be here to just get a sense of the vibe here. So if you like, if anything I've mentioned resonated with you, your practice, if you want to introduce yourself, add me on Instagram, whatever, I'll be really happy. I'm here for that, and I would love to collaborate with people at some point on some projects. So this is pretty much it. And are we ready to jump to questions?
So we're gonna have like a little discussion, but feel free to ask questions and jump in. Yeah, there's not, I mean, we can have like a time at the end dedicated to that, but also like we would like it to be a conversation more than a question answer kind of thing. So one thing that we talked about a lot was about curating as artistic curation. Is curating artistic creation, like the base of everything kind of I do, basically. So I'm interested to know what your stance is on that, and also what's, for a curator, what's sort of the medium that we work with. What do you think about that?
We rehearsed this, so I'm gonna just like...
I mean, not word for word.
Full disclosure. We talked about this yesterday. So yeah, I'm gonna mention the video of like my colleague in Montreal, Ariane Plante, who's a creator but also an artist, and she had to do this assignment where she would like explain to the broader audience what is a curator's job, and she would go on listing all the tasks and so on. But she said about the current discourses that there were like 2 different ways to see the role of a curator. and one of them is like being an author for the exhibition. So some people see it as a form of artistic writing, giving a new dimension to a body of works, and the other view is like the creator is an interpreter, more like a person who suggests a subjective reading to, and also facilitate the encounter with the audience. So yeah, departing from that, like I think, and we don't have a conclusion, spoiler, but I think on anything, it's just questions. So maybe you have answers and you're curious to know about it. I think it depends on the context.
Yeah, I mean, like everything else. Yeah. But I would also like add to those two interpretations, or yeah, whatever you want to call them, the role of a collaborator, which is also something that I think
or we've mentioned enabler.
Enabler, yeah, like someone who is there to, how do you say, kind of like question, prompt is a good one. Yeah, asking questions and kind of giving ideas. Like sometimes I'm just there to like talk shit, like be like, you know what, like I don't like this, like this color looks up, I don't know, like, but also, and this is something we also talked about, like being this sort of advocate for artists sometimes. Like again, it depends on the context, as you said, but I think, I mean, I work with living artists who need to pay rent and who need to, you know, yeah, live their lives, and sometimes we're there as just being like, this is not enough money, or you know, they need to get paid. That's also another dimension that I don't think gets talked about enough. That sometimes we act as like this barrier. I mean, not to put ourselves as saviors, but sometimes it is needed. Specifically with this kind of work that we do, that, you know, it can be so like not have a inclusive role, that sometimes that is the only thing we're there for, or sometimes it is to choose the color of a wall, like it depends.
Yeah, like you mean a barrier between like maybe sometimes the institution and the artist. Yeah. And for instance, we might be the person who, like, if the artist is like, this lighting doesn't work and like they need to change it and we need a technician, and the technician is like, oh, I don't have the time. And there's the idea of on whose shoulder the responsibility lies, and sometimes the artist complains, and maybe like as a creator there's a level of, I won't say authority, I hate that, but like to make the, I don't know. Like,
take responsibility?
Yeah. But I don't think I like the way I phrase it, but I mean, sometimes like it's almost reductive to say that it's, oh, we come up with a concept and select the artist, because there's so many other things that go on, and like emotional labor sometimes, or just like as you mentioned, advocating for well, this local transportation budget is not enough, you have to boost it, and you have to tell it to the people who organize this. So yeah, a lot of little things like that are, if you just say, I come up with a concept and I select the artist, it erases everything else in our respective concept.
Yeah.
Context.
And also, I think, like, that it's funny how we got to this conception of like a curator being an author, because I think it does happen in some levels, like, you know, the star curators, or mostly white men who are doing very well for themselves. Like, I'm sure they work that way. I'm sure they're just like, you know, I made this text and I chose this artists, and so just like put them here and here and here, and that's it. Like, I'm sure it kind of started like that, because it's fairly new what we do, or role. I wouldn't say what we do, but our role having a name. So I'm sure it did start like that, but it has become this like ball of many things that we need to do, especially in a context like ours, where we are raising funds, but also, producing and also writing and also choosing artists. So I think, again, we go back to the context being what's going to determine that. So yeah, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is what we...
Pati, I have a question.
Perdón.
Like, how do you feel like the artists have received like this role that you have like implemented in this type of curation? Like, is it like received as helpful or like intrusive, or like how have you seen like the work with the artists and this type of new curation role? Because that sometimes it could feel like a bit invasive or a bit like, so how have you feel like it has been navigating this new way of working?
So for me, it has been, I think it has to do with a lot of things. So for me, it hasn't, or at least not that I know of, it hasn't been received that way. But I think it has to do with the fact that when I approach an artist, specifically with the projects in which we collaborated and like made a new thing, a new piece, I always approach them with, the idea of a collaboration. Not as a curatorial kind of project in which I am going to take the credit and you're going to basically be working for me. And I think that's something that has been received well. With this, with the objects, I think is like the clear, like boundary blurring thing that I do. But yeah, like it also helps. So another one of the things that I wanted to say is that it also helps that I work mostly with friends, basically, especially in this type of project, that I know that they're going to be open to a collaboration, and they know my work, and they know how I work. So it always becomes, and these projects usually take a long time, like half a year to a year. So we and then when it comes to projects like this one, at that point we always had like an idea, and we approached the artists with the idea. We were like, are you okay with us doing this and your work being sort of hidden? And honestly, no one said no. So I think they were okay with it. So yeah, I guess just being like upfront is how I've navigated through that.
Yeah, so you were mentioning like a curator does, or being a curator entitles doing a lot of things. Do you think that is the role of a curator, that like it is inherent to being a curator, to doing many things, or is it because of like low funds and that many people should be involved doing all of the things that the curator is doing?
Maybe I'll just jump in here. I think my question would be another question. It would be, what is the role of an artist? Like, is it like an entrepreneur? Is it like putting your stuff on Instagram? Is it making your website? Is it like applying for grants, networking, all that? And it's a bit the same for the curator. And I think the role you take is the role you want to take, or you need to take more realistically. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The role you want to take, I would say. Because, but it does play a role, the fact that there aren't just that many people working in institutions or maybe galleries or wherever you are working. Like, I don't think, like I said before, like I think curating did start as this authorship kind of thing, in which you just, in my view, kind of used the art of other people as your raw material, which I don't think is a great approach. But then it became like what we do, which is a bunch of things, because of it just being needed.
I think this is one way to do it. And it's not like, it's probably not for everyone, maybe not all artists, like, and I think some exhibitions don't need curators.
Yeah.
And as you say, like, for this type of project that need a lot of time, a lot of dialogue, a lot of investment, I think you choose a person you work with, really. And it's important, and I mean, we have communities for that, and like, of course you know your people at some point, and you know who's willing to embark on this and who's not.
Yeah, that's important. The part, I mean, a curator saying that one does not always need a curator is like, I think, very honest, and it's true. Like, sometimes, like, I don't know, you see solo shows that are very clearly already like a body of work, and it's like, but sometimes the artist reaches out, and sometimes the artist needs that sounding board. So that's where like collaboration kind of takes on a different approach. But right now it's seen as curating, but I would say like it's a different dimension. Like there are very different dimensions in which you can curate.
Yeah, I have a story actually. I haven't told you this one, but recently, like last year, an artist approached me, and she's someone very like, she knows where she's going, and she doesn't need much. And she's like, do you want to be my curator for that show in Montreal? And she's from Toronto. And I'm like, you don't need a show. I know, you know what, like you have your concept, you have your writers, you have like, you know where you're going, what am I going to do for you? And I really just plainly, bluntly asked that. And she said, I need an int in Montreal. I need like someone who knows people in Montreal who can help me show my work. And I was like, you need a manager or an agent. You don't maybe need a curator, but she's like, oh no, but I like to work with you. We have a connection, like we're not friends, but we've seen each other and we worked together before, and she would like trust you to represent me. So is it the role of a curator? I don't think so, or maybe it is. And she did not get her funding after all, so it never happened, but what would you have said? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it is, like I said, like sometimes you just need to pick a wall color, sometimes you need to invite people, like that's what it's come to. Also because I think that, like I said, like it's been so recent, like the creation of the curator as a figure, that I think we're still kind of figuring it out. So, if there's, yeah.
What? Just looking at your projects between 2018 and then 23, just these two examples. Do you find that there's has the pandemic affected the way that you view curation and digital art? Like for me, specifically digital art, I feel like that was a big shift for me. But I'm just curious how that looks on the side of curators. I don't know that's good for you.
That is, I mean, it's been interesting. Specifically for the show, this one, it had to do with the fact that Santiago was working on this album that we launched during the pandemic. So I think conceptually it did a lot, like for the artists. So for me, I think I've been working with different subjects after the pandemic. Like I'm way more interested in social media, for example. Like all of this trends that happened on TikTok during and after the pandemic. So all of that as like conceptual material, I think has like affected my practice. But also in the way we share it, I feel like there was a spike of interest in digital art during the pandemic, even in like digital shows or exhibitions, or the way we were hosting symposium or all of these things. But I don't think it's stuck.
Yeah, where is it now?
Yeah, I think like even like the NFT boom, all of these things that happened, like they're gone. Like it was just a big like spike of interest, and now it's like we're back to basically 2018. Like it's the same in my eyes. Like the interest that was happening at that time, I think it's back to that at the moment. I don't know what you think, Sarah.
And I think maybe we can jump to the state of media arts question, because we had a question in that sense, and it's like in Montreal at the moment there's well, let's go back to the pandemic. Before, like during the pandemic, so I worked with MUTEC in Montreal, and we had like we created a platform for virtual.mutec.org with works like virtual exhibitions, and we were streaming shows and so on, and we put a lot of money into that platform. And then when we went back in the public space and we could have like real audiences, we still kept like a virtual exhibition, but like we saw numbers and people were not interested in seeing exhibitions online. When we were also offering something in IRL, like in presence. And then all the platform needs to be updated. Like now it's just like there and almost dead. And I think it would cost too much to just like put it back online and working. So it's so sad. Like I think at that moment it was out of necessity, but I think also like I was curating a project like that was born during the pandemic, and it was called what was it again? Dancing While Waiting for the End of the World. And it was this idea of like we were longing for being together, for like embodied experiences. And then after the pandemic, I think we went back to that a bit. Like the ways of experiencing art that are more collective than individual, which brings me to the other question. Like at the moment in Montreal, there's a huge hype around immersive sound. Like people want to like have shows and feel the sound like in the floor, on like from the top, all over. They want to be immersed in sound, for instance. And it's also telling of like what we were mentioning, the funding that we have in Montreal. I think we're not like that bad, because we can like try to bring like huge sound systems to have sound everywhere. So we're lucky in that sense. So yeah, I mean, I feel it shifted to like everything that is like more embodied, more like, that you bring your body in an exhibition space, or to have an experience that you cannot have at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad because a lot of us like put a lot of effort into these sort of platforms. I didn't personally. Like I was already like working with these types of things, and I was like, you know, if you're interested, like a lot of people kind of reached out during that time, and they were like, oh, like digital stuff, like you do that, don't you? Like, yeah, been doing that. So, but yeah, like all of those efforts, I feel like kind of just got forgotten, or, and I understand like the need to go back to being in person. Like I said, like I'm like an object aficionado. Like I really do like physical stuff, but I don't know. I felt like for a moment there, I was like, oh, this is actually like taken off. Like I think I'm gonna do well. But then like yeah, just kind of. But I understand. Like it's just I feel like we're so in our tech that we just need a different way of experiencing. Like a third place. We need a third place that's physical. So yeah, exactly.
And also we were talking about the fact that technology can be seen as really something super broad, like the Chiampas are a form of technologies, for instance,
yeah.
or like tools and just methods or like yeah. So I've heard that a lot, to see like a technology, like a dance as a technology, or I think we're moving like away from just the digital medium and the screens, and expanding the notion and the definition of what technology is.
Yeah, also because technology is so embedded into everything at the moment that I don't think we can only talk about like digital art is the thing that lives in our screens. Like I don't know, like most artists use social media for sharing their work, or they use whatever projectors to draw, or like when does it become digital or media practice and when doesn't it? Like, why is it only? I think we can talk about the term new media here, which is so obsolete in my opinion. I have beef with that term. Like it's not new. Like it's been there. Maybe it was new when they first decided to name it, but like at the moment, it's obsolete. Like it's a term that was created to be obsolete. So yeah, I don't know. This other term that you use in French, I find really interesting, which is numérique.
Yeah. Art numérique.
I don't.
You said digital. That's a bit like, or.
I think it's like in the way I understand it. I don't speak French, but the way I understand it, I think it's more kind of it's closer to digital
or media.
Mediales. That's the thing in Spanish that is mostly used in South America, like Chilean writers use it a lot. Argentinian writers use it a lot, but somehow in Mexico we're still stuck with new media, which is, but okay. Yeah, the term numérique kind of is really interesting to me. I don't like. Do you think it has more to do with electronic or more with digital?
We have like a program at the Faculty of Music that's called Music Numérique, so like digital music, I think. So it can basically be applied to pretty much everything. Like I think in that case, it's like the tools that are like, it's people working with synthesizers and stuff like that. So I guess it's like, but all music is numeric. It's like digital because we all use like not all of them, but like everything that's plugged into a wall.
Yeah.
Well, you get but I mean, yeah, in that case, it's applied to music, but it's like, it's a good question. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, and I think it's also very telling about what we do that we're still sort of trying to name what we do, both the role of a curator, but also like the medium that we work with. I think we went on a very niche road for ourselves. What you were talking about, making our lives more difficult, yeah, I think we achieved that.
Yeah, and there's also like the arts and technology thing that's very common, and like we're big in Canada on collaborations with university and research centers, and like, oh, we're gonna do a project with the Quantum Physics Institute and such things. So it's another layer of like blending research and art, sometimes in a good way and sometimes in just like a surface. It seems like every conferences I've seen recently about quantum physics starts with like, it's impossible to explain or to understand quantum physics. Like speakers who are invited to talk about that have this disclaimer. So it's kind of like, and it's a bit like, I feel that artists who are working with quantum physics are using it as a metaphor rather than just like the tool itself at its full potential. So this is another trend that we observe.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I feel it's very contextual. Like I don't think when you were just now talking about the sound systems that's kind of trending in Montreal, like that's not a thing that has hit here yet. I don't think. Like there are spaces that have specialized equipment. Like there's a sound room in WAC, and yeah, but I don't think. Like right now, museums are kind of struggling to keep the lights on, like quite literally. So I don't think they're gonna be, spending thousands of dollars to get equipment for such a niche thing.
Yeah, and it's a problem of access for the artists as well. To use the tools, they have to get access to it. So, and you compose for a system, and then you cannot circulate it after because it's made for like this specific thing.
Mm-hmm. And also, like working with technology as an institution, I imagine it can be really hard because it's obsolete in a year. So then you have to get money to fund it again and again and again. Like that's a thing that happened, for example, to the Centro de Cultura Digital. Like when it was first created, they had like state-of-the-art equipment, but that was 20 years ago or like 15 years ago. So now it's like they need to like get money to renew all of the equipment, but it's just not happening. And that's, yeah, Art Alameda, like same thing. And this is why I think just those practices are very rarely shown, because we just don't have the equipment to do that. And I was like very interested to pick your brain, and I think a lot of people here would also be interested in how funding works in Canada, specifically in Montreal, because I know that they pour a lot of money into just arts, and here it's been kind of dwindling for the last years.
Yeah, well, I don't know how long it's gonna last because we're all like living in the same world and have the same neighbor, for Mexico and Canada. So like, there's this. Yeah, but in Canada we have like a lot of different sources, and we're lucky. So you can get funding from the Canada Arts Council, your province Arts Council. So in my case, Quebec, and the city, so Montreal. You can also like the city, like the Conseil des Arts de Montréal, so the Arts Council of Montreal, and the City of Montreal. So you have like different ministries, and sometimes like we can also get access. I think it's a bit of the same here, but like from Pro if you're working with Swiss artists, or Goethe Institute if you're working with German artists. So we have that too. Yeah, so it's pretty like it's a big business, and most of our events are funded through public fundings. We're not big on sponsorships. Like it's like maybe like 10% of our budgets. It's not a lot, and for like independent projects, like when I say 10%, I talk about like big organizations and festivals, for instance. But like for independent exhibitions, no funding from the private sector at all. Like not at all. It's good if you can have croissant sponsored by your local bakery. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. So the situation is good in Montreal, and they're also strong on like sending artists doing stuff abroad. So like they're funding for residencies, for touring exhibitions, for instance. So there's a lot of like, and there are ways to collaborate with other. If, for instance, I make an exhibition with a curator in Mexico, and there are Mexican artists and Canadian artists, there are ways to like make things happen. It also like a lot of institutions, festivals are willing to do that in Canada. So it's always better if you have an institutions, because you have more like capacity, more resources. But as an independent, it's also like something that can happen. Artists collaborating together, you can have a creation grant, and your collaborator is elsewhere in the world. So there are ways to do that still for now. Finger crossed.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because we were talking about this, and I think that there's support here in Mexico for artists, and of course not enough because we are a bunch of people, but specifically support for curators, I don't think there's basically any. Like there's the FUMEX grant and the PAC grant, but those are for like specific shows that you need to have basically everything ready, everything signed, and all the pieces like here almost, or like have the code for it to get to the venue. Like you have to have the exhibition ready, and that takes a lot of work to do for something that you don't know if it's getting funded or not.
Yeah, we do have like research grants and like travel grants, just to like meet people and see if it's possible or not to do the project. So it helps a lot.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything specific for curators here. Not that I know of. If anyone knows, I would love for you to share it with me. But yeah, the way that I've been kind of bypassing that is by doing residencies. So then you can get like support from CONCA, or the Sistema de Creación, I think it's called now. But I still have to apply as an artist, which is always like kind of a mind fuck for me because of the work that I do, which is like I'm always questioning, is this artistic practice or curatorial practice? So I'm always like, okay, I need to apply as an artist. It's like, it's an existential crisis every time I apply to those things. But that's the only kind of support that I've been able to receive.
So do you like redo your portfolio every time and like change the wording that you use?
I changed the wording, not
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I use mostly like in collaboration with this other artist, and it's mostly like the objects that I've done. Yeah, I mean, good thing that I have those, because if I didn't, like, I don't know what I would, like, what would I get supported on, you know, like, so it's either that or, you know, educational grants, applying to masters or whatever, because that is funded, there is funding for that. But yeah, it's also like interesting when I was in Montreal that I noticed that there's a big interest in this numeric practices. Like I don't think I've ever been to a city that is so like into it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Since I'm here, I noticed that it is not much the case. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it's because of like some festivals and organizations that have been around for about 20 years. They're all about like 20, 25 years old, like the big festivals and digital art stuff. And also, this is something we've talked about yesterday, like the fact that a lot of teachers in universities, they also have like an active practice. So they have like a research group in their universities, and then they work with students on a project that gets, after that, gets exhibited space, or artists and so on. So there's this connection between research and creation. That's a term that we label everything that we research and creation. It's basically art made by teachers in the context of the university. But it's really interesting as well to have this bridge between the education and the real world. People are not disconnected once they get into the university, and they don't have to drop their career as artists either. So it's cool.
Yeah, and they can live
Yeah.
teaching. Yeah.
Yeah, if they can manage to do everything at the same time, because I think just teaching is a full-time job. So and being an artist is also a full-time job. But when you get supported within your job at the university, it helps.
Yeah. Or when you can like merge the two.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so do you want to keep going? I can keep going.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Una pregunta acá.
Sí.
I have a question because I am at my last semester of art history, and that's something that I was wondering because sometimes the idea or the role of the curator in my school, in my university, is like a sacred person, like a very difficult thing to do. So I wanted to ask you if you have like some advice from your work of how an art historian that is about to graduate can begin with this idea of curating. Because, for example, I think that your artist part can be really good for knowing other artists. But for example, the art history is really like to research and to every curating project has to give something new, has to change the world, no? And that's not some of my classmates, we are not into that. We are like more into little projects, like to begin to that's my question.
Okay, it's a very good question. I'd say some of my colleagues, when I was in art history, they liked research a lot, and they were not from Montreal, and they were not going out, like you would never see them in the openings, in the shows, and they knew a lot of things about art, but they didn't know a lot of people. And I think the first projects that I did were with, and still the projects I do, is with people I I meet in different events that are friends of friends, not even friends, or like people I've seen in a show, and I'm like, hey, I really like your show. I think you could be very good in this context. Or it's not even people I know sometimes. It's just people I've seen the work of, and I'm like, oh, that exhibition was so good, and I'm working on this project. Are you willing to participate? So I think it's really to be out there and to go to events, really. And if you expect that every show you make will like change the world,
You're never gonna make anything.
yeah. But also it's good to have still like I will see the opposite of what I'm just saying. Making exhibitions just to make exhibitions, you're gonna like get burned. It's just so much work. If it's not worth it, like nobody does it for fun. I mean, like, oh yeah, I like to have fun, but do it for fun, but don't do it just because you feel like doing it, because it's fun to have like to be proud of what you do and to like know why you're doing things also. So yeah, it's a balance, like, but asking yourself, does this thing need to exist before making it happen? It's always a bit reflex.
Yeah. No, I think my advice also has to do with what you said. Just going out and meeting people. Like, I know it was funny when I said I work with living artists, but I do. Like, I don't specialize in, you know, historical art or art from the 1900s or whatever. I work with contemporary artists, so I need to go and see contemporary artists and meet them, and they're usually pretty cool. Like, you can just talk to them. So that would be like my first advice, to just go out, go to shows, go to events. Like, another thing that I did was started working in galleries, just because like I literally needed a job, and and that's what I was interested in, like art. So I started doing an internship, and I met a lot of people there, and that's how I kind of started the ball rolling, you know. And also, I would advise to just have fun. Yes, like think about or question what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing, but at the end of the day, we're not heart surgeons, and we get to have fun.
Yeah.
And we get to like do things just for fun. So yeah, like maybe you will someday curate a show that changes the world, but you can also just have fun sometimes.
Yeah. And also, like, I think when you do it in the with the goal to like showcase works that you love, and that like you're like, this artist is saying something, it means something, the world needs to see it. It's already like a small, like it changes the world at some scale. You know?
Yeah.
Could you talk about the difference between curating work that's fundamentally participatory or experience-based versus work that's fundamentally object-based?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think we reached the conclusion when we asked ourselves that yesterday. So we were thinking about it in the context of what's the difference between programming and curating, because we both work for festivals or fairs. So we really, I mean, in my case, I don't think I reached the conclusion, honestly.
We circled around the conclusion that maybe the research part was the difference, but again, it's like, I think that some programming team do a lot of research and some curators don't do a lot of research. So I think it might not be the key. Like, again, we don't have an answer. But for participatory work, I think what changes is the audience factor. Like, you have to anticipate the way, like even more, you always have to anticipate the way, but you really have to think of the audience like at the core of the project, how they will experience it, and sometimes it doesn't happen the way like you expected. And sometimes it happens when the work is at one place, but when you move it in another context, the way that people are interacting with it changes. So I think the audience would be the difference. And
Yeah.
just a word. audience.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, do you have like more concrete examples of like participatory work or immersive work?
Yes, so maybe I can narrow down the question a little bit. It seems that at the intersection of art and technology, we have a lot of art that's engaging based. You go scan, you go find. And that seems to drive engagement up in museums that are losing audience gradually. But then at the same time, a lot of the practices that exist seem to be object-based. So maybe a narrower question might be, how do you keep object-based practices relevant? What can we learn maybe from art that directly engages the audience, that we can apply to art that's more contemplative, harder to get into?
What comes to my mind specific, like spontaneously, is I had an exhibition at one point, and there was a work. There were like big rocks with LCD screens on it, and artist was like had all this idea about like the fact that iPads were made of minerals and like the big rocks, and it was about geology, about like deep time and so on. But the iPad was just there like to reference the idea of like minerals and all, and people kept coming in the gallery and trying to like touch the screen, and like nothing would happen because it was not the purpose of this work. So this is also a danger with interactivity and like gamification of the work. I feel like people always expect like the screen to do something or the button to like produce a sound. So, but again, like of course there's still like painting exhibition, there's still sculpture exhibition. So it's okay. It's just like in some context the audience expects something that's not there. So, but it's really dependent. When you go to a museum of fine arts, you don't expect to touch the painting, and the painting can exist. Of course, it's just some context. It blends like entertainment and art, and this is where people get like confused. And I think there's room for every type of like content or artworks, but you really have today to like make sure the audience know what to expect, I think.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I go back to the concept of MUTEC and the way it's done in Montreal. Like they present, for example, video pieces in this big dome that it's also like a venue for events, for musical events. So I feel like that kind of being an event that is also presenting visual work kind of helps like draw the people in a way, like, and it's seen also like as a collaboration between like sometimes the musician also did the visuals, or sometimes it's a collaboration between the musician and the visual artist, but it's presented in a format that it's not, you know, a screen on a wall in a museum. It's like it's an event, and I think that could like also be a way to draw people in. Like, I don't know, like the little concert that I did, like it's also like a different level or layer of interactivity. Like it's not coming in and touching an iPad, but it's like it's an event.
Yeah, something that just came to my mind, and I'm curious to know what you all think about that. The immersive Van Gogh exhibition that's touring. It's like Van Gogh paintings, but projected on the walls, and like the spirals are like swirling in the sky, and everything is moving. Like, do you need to enter the painting really? Like,
yeah, like, do you really? Is it needed? Is this another thing that the world needs? Like,
yeah.
No?
Okay, I have thoughts. I'm going to try to like turn it into a question. But I'm wondering, so thinking as curation also as a creative act that is, well, that can be like more or less active, as you discussed. Where, or yeah, how do you feel more fulfilled or with a sense of quote-unquote success, whatever that might mean to you? Because I'm thinking there's curations that are more sort of like silent or subtle, that don't appear evidently to the public. For example, I don't know, say you have a show of paintings and you organize them in a certain way and that creates a rhythm or a certain narrative, but that's not evident. Versus, I don't know, you pick out a bunch of artists and you write this text big on the wall, and that is like very strong. Like, oh, these works are about this. Like, where, I don't know, like, how do you feel about that? And also, yeah, like the ego, the me, what am I doing, or versus what is being seen, what is being liked or like understood, and also like understanding the commercial needs or the also obviously desiring some sort of positive reaction. Like, where do you stand trying to push something that maybe will not be like immediately well received or entertaining or grand, versus something that is like more uncomfortable maybe? Like, how do you merge those things and make them work for you?
You have about 10 excellent questions there. So what I've heard is like the idea of recognition of or like authorship, yeah, or like the idea of just having like being seen, or but also like the balance between being seen and also if it could be fulfilling to just support an artist like for nothing right now. We're talking about this one. We had this thought about is collective curating could be like a stance, or like is it an erasure? Like you don't want to like upstage anyone or be like this star curator, so you have this collaborative setup, and is it like because we don't believe that our voices are strong enough, for instance, it's like a form of imposter syndrome, or is it like, can it be political, can it be like we think that collaborating together brings something better, and this is like what we do, and we're never gonna like be, oh, I'm this star and I've made this with object artists, like let's say. So so there's this, and also there was so many things. Take another one.
Yeah, like talking about what is more fulfilling in your practice. I mean, for me, I think it would be like that moment when I actually like understand what the artist means, and I'm like, okay. So I don't know if it's for me or for me to like tell other people. I don't know why, but like that click for me is like the most fulfilling part, and then trying to kind of put that into something, and like as we were saying the other day, is that like our work doesn't exist. I mean, specifically my work doesn't exist without artists. Sometimes curators work for a natural museum, and it does work without artists. But for me specifically, the artist, and I'm not saying I come second, but like they could do it without a curator, and I couldn't do it without them. So I think that part is like something that I keep in mind a lot, but I do bring like something different to the way it's shown, or the way it's maybe understood, or maybe shared, or yeah,
and as part of your question, I think, and what you just brought us closer to, is like the idea of museography as well. Like, is there a difference between just staging or organizing a collection? Because like the term itself, curator or curador, yeah,
comes from curare.
Yeah, exactly. So it means taking care of like, and like from the start objects. So like just taking care of a collection. So there's no creative act in like taking care of a collection in itself. So from the start, curating was not like something creative. So yeah, like, and regarding like museography, we were talking about exchanging emails about Samia Eni, who's a researcher, and she works with, they were like nuclear tests in the Sahara in Algeria, like in the 60s. and there are archives that, like describing the French like the French were testing in the desert. And she works with the archives that are still classified, so most people don't have access to it, and she uses the exhibition as a way to give access to the broader audience, the archives of the project is called Colonial Toxicity. But she's a researcher and an author, and she's awesome, but in her exhibitions there's no artist. Like, it's just like a scenography of archives, and it's really well done. But can there be a show without artists, and is like organizing archives in a space, curation, for instance? And we don't have the answer.
I mean, everything can exist.
Everything
Everything does exist.
Oh yeah, and this show was presented in Montreal at the School of Design, so it was not an art school. Nuance. So yeah. Did we touch to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And like a tiny other thought,
Yeah.
small. I don't know, that this just made me sort of think, it was like it's an image, like thinking, like an artist, for example, can like walk around the world and gather things, like almost as a collage or something like that, and create like pieces, and then it's like a curator, I'm thinking now, can sort of do like the same exercise, but almost like in a broader way, like bringing like those pieces that are like people together and like showing them. I don't know, I think that was like
You talked about remixes.
Yeah,
pieces, yeah.
exactly. So when I graduated from my BFA, I was really thinking about those questions specifically. And I, at some point, mentioned that a curator was a certain DJ that was remixing works. And thank you. Bye. But I've kind of grown apart from that idea, because I don't think, like I mentioned at some point tonight, I don't think other people's artwork is yours to kind of take as a raw material. Like it's its own thing by itself. And yes, you can like create a new interpretation. That is certainly something a curator can do, and some of them do. But with the years, I kind of became more weary of saying that and doing that, because I think it's kind of like, how do you say, like despreciar, like the work of someone who also has practice. And I think ideas are raw material, but I don't think artworks necessarily are.
And what if like working in collaboration with artists like that closely over a long period of time is a way for us like to make sure that the artwork and the artist is respected, like in the intent, in the like integrity of the, maybe it's a way.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, maybe it's like my own like guilt being like, like no, I need to make sure that this person like not agrees, but like is like sure that I'm seeing it the same way as they are, you know? Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I have my BFA thesis here. I can share it with you. It's very old. It's falling apart. But yeah.
Okay, what has been your experience curating internationally? I think like each country has its own kind of concept rules, so I think that's really interesting, like curating in different countries or continents.
I worked in Chile, in Colombia, and the US, I think. Yeah, I mean in Montreal I didn't do like curatorial work, but those are the countries. In Latin America, in my experience, like it's almost the same as here. The money is not there, and we're all doing like many different jobs. But there is a very strong like sense of community. that I think, in my opinion, is like something very prevalent in just media art. I think like there's a few of us.
In small communities in general.
Yeah. So yeah, Latin America, and also I've worked with independent spaces. So that tells you a lot about, you know, the funding and stuff. It's not big museums or institutions. And in the US, like the thing that I noticed most is that there's more money, obviously. So, and everyone has like this sort of role that is attached to your work. Like, I don't know, some people would freak out if I like took a hammer and started like hammering a wall to hang a piece. They were like, no. I was like, what? Like, I do this all the time. So yeah, I think that was a shocker for me in the US. And also the community is more like dispersed. Like not everyone knows everyone, like when I work here or in other places in Latin America.
I've never created a show abroad, but I've worked with a South Korean curator in Montreal, and the differences that I've seen was, in that case, it was more like the curator came with an exhibition with like about 6 works by Korean artists, and my job was to complete the exhibition with like 6 works by Canadian artists. So it was like her concept, really, and I was just like responding to it. And the difference that I've seen in general is like the exhibition, it was like so last minute, but it was kind of a promoting the Korean culture abroad thing. So we had like I don't know, 12 works installed in 4 days. They were all digital artworks. So we had like 2 days to install, 4 days of exhibition, 1 day to dismantle. It was absolutely insane. And following this exhibition, we had a publication, a full unprinted catalog in color, all the like with much budget, everything. We had like an 8-minute documentary. We had like, I think the documentation of the thing that was not that big or that like well attended. I mean, we did promotion like the week before, but it felt like very huge. And I can imagine her coming back, like going back to South Korea, and like look at my catalog, look at my video, like that was whew. And like almost like most of my friends missed the show because it was too short. So I think that was the difference. And I think it's in general, like when you do stuff far away from home, sometimes you have to come back with proofs that it happened, because like your people cannot see what happened. So like the documentation aspect of the thing was very huge. But other than that, I don't have like much experience in creating other projects.
Curating international artists, have you done something like that? Has it been like a different experience, like for example being Latin American and curating people from the States or from Europe? I think it's quite cultural sometimes, the conversation you have with artists, so I would love to hear your experience.
For me, it's been like, I think it always comes back to money. I think Latin American artists kind of assume that they're not going to get paid, which is not great. But yeah, like most of them don't even ask. And what I've seen with artists from Europe and from the US is that they, I mean, as they should, from the beginning ask about the fee, and they're like in a way more professionalized. Like I think it's not, I don't think it's the right word, but like they teach them in school how to charge, how, you know, they even have, I think you do that in Canada, that you have like tabulador, how would you say that? Like a chart for fees. We don't have that. So like most people are like clueless about how much to charge, or like how much to charge for a talk and how much to charge for showing your work, or
Yeah, we have standards. Like it's a national organization that like breaks down like, and it's updated every year. Like for a collective shows with 3 works, you can like this is the minimum, like the base fee, and then people are always free to give more, but there's like a standard. And an artist can say, oh, this is not perfect. Perfect is the thing. So yeah, so this is very helpful for artists in general. They have tools. And yeah, the negotiation part is really different from country to country. Like I programmed a show, like a virtual exhibition online for MeTech, and people, like most people, 20 artists will all pay the same, but you know, like this artist from that country was just like, no, I'm gonna, like, I want $100 more. And it was like a tiny difference, but it was important to this artist. And I mean, we gave it. Like, I mean, so sometimes, like, and I tell myself that I should negotiate more, because like, when you ask and it's like nothing, like it's $100, makes no difference for anyone. So sometimes you're just like, oh yeah, thank you.
And if it's only one artist that's asking, you're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see that a lot with artists from abroad. That's like the first thing I noticed. And then I think like they're more used, in my case, like artists from abroad are more used to working with a curator. Because again, like at least here in Mexico City, like there aren't a lot of curators versus how many artists there are. So I don't think there's a lot of experience of contemporary artists working with curators. So like they know, like most of the time when I'm working with artists from abroad, they know like what questions to ask, and like they, I don't know, from the beginning they're like, okay, so I'm gonna need a text this long, or like, you know, like it's just more experience. I think we bored everyone else. So thank you for staying.
Muchas gracias por acompañarnos.
Gracias. Gracias por quedarse. Buenas noches.